Hello again, all you sexy people on the internet. Here is episode or part two of our World of Erudain, the races of Erudain. Sorry if this one is going up a bit late. Again, I'm trying to just get back into the setting of recording it and getting all these episodes ready so that we have plenty to finish out the New Year's. Once we hit 2022, I'll still be trying to, but I'm not going to be as dedicated to my one post every day. So let me get into my discussion. Continuing off, we only have a few races left. So the next race we're going to talk about is Tieflings. Yes, Tieflings are, as you see, they are like a part demonic or part fiendish race, devilish sometimes. And in my world, how tieflings originate is, well, A, they can either have tiefling parents, or B, sometimes just randomly at birth, usually humans, but honestly any race can have this, is a child is born with a certain amount of dark or demonic energy in their body, and that causes them to kind of become a tiefling. Uh, they could be very obvious, or it could be not at all. They will have at least a characteristic of tieflings, sometimes darker skin, of maybe red, blue, purple, green, silver. Sometimes very less. Sometimes they'll have like a tail, sometimes not. It really depends, and sometimes they can very much hide the fact that they are tieflings. Um, so you'll actually find tieflings that look very much like other races. You will find tieflings that look like dwarves because their ancestors were at one point dwarves. So they'll be short, stocky, have beards, but may also have red skin. Um, Tieflings are unfortunately, because of how they're born, do not are not viewed in very pleasant light. They are very racially discriminated against, especially in the Empire. Many are killed at birth or burned at the stake, blamed for the problems because, well, they're used as a scapegoat, which is why many tieflings flee and eventually come here, where that we have a small country of tieflings where they have run away from their slavery, their ill will and stuff, and are just trying to start over in this kind of desperate land. Okay, so that's tieflings. This isn't really a this is a weird race, as I'm going to briefly talk about half-elves. Now, half-elves, they're half human, they're half elf, yada yada. They kind of fit in anywhere. But I have a few rules about half-elves. Firstly, a half-elf can come from two human parents, or even rarer, two elven parents, if they had elven blood in their line. Such children are usually called changelings if they're born as a half elf to purely human parents. Um, but it can happen. And you can also have two half elves having either a human child or a purely elven child. Again, not very common. Again, these are very rare, but they do happen occasionally. Um, so, yeah, half elves. I always rule that again they fit in with society, but they have they distance themselves because they realize no matter what, if they live among humans, they're going to outlive their family, their friends, even their loved ones. If they live among the elves, they're not going to live nearly as long. So they're half elves are friendly. They are accepted by everyone, but there's always a bit of a distance, especially when forming stronger relationships with half elves. Okay, I'm pretty sure that is all the races from the player's handbook. Or yes. So I'm going to briefly talk about three races from I believe they're in Volos. And I think those are basically all the major races. There is, of course, other races, but I don't think they're nearly populous enough. So next up, I'm going to talk about Goliaths. Goliaths are of giant's blood. They mostly live in the Arctic continent, as their tough giant bodies are very durable, and so they are able to withstand these extreme temperatures and just this harsher lifestyle a lot better than other races. So the Goliath, it's not even really a country, but it is viewed as Goliath land on the Arctic continent, where they are able to live on their own, separate from the rest of the world. Yeah, Goliaths have a culture that worships strength a lot. They view themselves, they're pretty stoic, but they do love to tell stories of their ancestors and family members and just great feats of strength. That was pretty short, mostly because I haven't had a lot of chance to explore the Goliaths. Uh, so next up is one of my favorite races, but it's a race I don't usually let people play as, the Aasimar. Uh, Aasimar are, of course, similar to Tieflings, but much rarer is when a child is born touched by um, more light or celestial elements. They are born as an Aasimar, having almost a half angelic sense. Most Aasimar will tend to have pure white hair, as well as white eyes. Though that's not actually always the case, depending on the strength of the Aasimar. Sometimes the white hair will only appear when they are casting spells or activating their abilities. Sometimes they will look completely human, or sometimes elven, um, or even dwarvish. But most Aasimar are humans, um, because it's just much rarer, and humans are A, susceptible to magical elements, as I've mentioned, and B, they are the most populous race. So most Aasimar are of human parentage. So Aasimar are greatly worshipped by human society if they are properly identified. Admittedly, if your child is born with weird glowing eyes and white hair, you might think it could be something else. Sometimes they are, again, believed to be changelings, swapped out by hags, or they could be believed to be cursed, or even of tiefling blood, as, again, people don't fully understand uh, what an Aasimar is. But when Aasimars are identified properly, the child is often taken away from its parents. Oops. Well, and brought to the city of Zenora, because it is the holy city where they are uh, basically treated as a saint or saintess, and they are given this life of comfort and ability, and are taught many different things, given special positions. Sometimes they could rise to be a leader of a faith. They could be oracles. They could be seers. They have this very high position. Um, but but they are taken away from their parents. They are raised separately by the churches, and they are honestly viewed often as a bit of a just a status symbol. Um, while they're supposed to have a lot of power and influence, they aren't always listened to. Viewed more as just an icon of the religion rather than an enactor of it. Okay, that got on a bit of a down note. I was going to say last race, but I actually have one more after this. So the next race I'm going to talk about is Firbolgs. Yes, Firbolgs. They are the guardians of nature. You'll often find them deep in forests and jungles. They're kind of a hidden race. They don't like to interact with the outside world much. They prefer to protect nature and its bounties. So a great place to find them is the Great Forest Continent, as after the elves were kicked out, the Firbolgs have become the new guardians of the world tree of the Great Forest. Uh, and so they diligently protect this forest. They stop intruders because no one is supposed to reach the world tree without permission. Um, they make great druids, of course, and yeah, they are a they're not a hostile race. They are very protective. They are very quiet, but they're not aggressive. Um, they tend to shy away from most things, especially the more civilized races, like even elves, who they have their kingdoms merging with forests, are a bit too unnatural to the Firbolgs. A Firbolg tends to be fine with the smaller cities, but anything more urban, bustling, they are not as happy with. They also do get upset if it's just not what their natural terrain is. Many grow up in forests and so are uncomfortable in rocky or snowy or hot or sandy or whatever terrain. Um, but that is more of a personal thing. They are, though, just unnatural, just being in large metropolises, so large cities in countries and whatnot. They do not find agreeable. So that is the Firbolgs. I do have one more race that I am adding to the list, and that is Genassi. Genasi are very similar to Tieflings in that a mortal race, human, elf, dwarf, gnome, halfling, will just be born that will be born kind of with more than normal elemental magic in them, and will thus be transformed into a Genasi, half elemental. Uh, they can also have Genasi parents, or they could be under the effect of a spell or something, magical rituals. There are a lot of ways people can become a Genasi. Uh, Most common way is just you're born it, either from parents or a random coincidence, but it can happen in other ways. The Genasi tend to be, they tend to take after their element. So an air Genasi is going to be more uh, free-willed, carefree. That a rock Genasi will, or earth Genasi will tend to be a bit more stubborn, faithful, and trying to think of the word. Uh, yeah, but yeah, you understand. Water genasi tend to be caring and kind of they'll go with the flow, but can be very forceful. Fire genasi are very passionate and sometimes a bit aggressive. But those are the races of Erudain, at least all the major ones that you are likely to encounter. There are, of course, many other races throughout the world. The Yuan-ti, the Loxodon, the Aarakocra, the what's the other bird one? The Tabaxi. That Tabaxi is not the other bird one. I just skipped and went ahead. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of other races. They're just not going to be nearly as common. So I'm not going to mention them in this video. But I do hope you enjoyed this video and that you have a great day. Expect more videos to coming out soon. I am working on a lot of stuff. So yeah, have a great day.